Big election in 8 days in Atlanta. The second female mayor will be the winner there, but could be the first white mayor in Atlanta in 40 years. Keisha Lance Bottoms is running against Mary Norwood. Both serve on the city council. Joining us right now is candidate Keisha Lance Bottoms. We had reached out to Mary Norwood several times. I have not heard from her, so we have Keisha Lance Bottoms. Councilwoman, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you today?
Doing great. Critical issues facing voters there. One of the things that I've heard people on social media, they say that not enough has been done for folks who are not in the middle class or the upper class in Atlanta. What is your agenda when it comes to affordable housing for folks who are not making six figures? How are you going to make sure they are part of the Atlanta Renaissance?
That's our biggest issue in Atlanta right now, Roland. We are facing what so many other cities are facing. We are having massive redevelopment throughout the city, but it really has been at the expense of many of our neighborhoods and many of the people who've been waiting generations for this redevelopment to come. So affordability is a 100-day item, top of the list. I announced a $1 billion affordability plan, meaning we will have $500 million in private investment, $500 million in public investment. It's a very aggressive plan, but we really are struggling to just try and catch up and then get ahead of the curve on this, because it's an issue that's impacting cities across this country, and Atlanta is no different.
One of the things that we look at is from a contracting standpoint. I'm reading the biography by Bob Holmes on Maynard Jackson. 1973, 0.0012% of all city contracts went to African Americans. That means for every $100 spent, only 12 cents went to black folks. That is a concern for folks as well in terms of in the future. What does it look like there, and what is the future for African American business owners economically when it comes to city contracts?
Well, if you come through Hartsfield-Jackson, the international airport, you will notice it's not like any other airport in the city. You know that you are in Atlanta, and that's very intentional. Just about 40 cents on every dollar is spent with minority contractors and business owners within our airport. And so we have to continue to be intentional. The unfortunate part is that there's a narrative that goes along with that if you are a contractor and you're doing business in the city of Atlanta, that somehow you are corrupt. And that's an unfortunate narrative, because we know what the trickle down is throughout our communities. Our contractors are the same people who go and support our churches. They support the Little League teams. They support the fraternities and sororities in our communities. And so I think that, it's a PR issue. I think that sometimes you have bad apples, but it certainly doesn't spoil the whole bunch. And I think that Atlanta needs to continue to be the model, and we need to make sure that we are expanding those opportunities outside of the existing pool of contractors that we currently have in the city of Atlanta.
Crime has been an issue that has come up in this election as well. How do you, as someone who wants to be mayor, separate those who say over-policing impacts the community as opposed to protecting and serving the community?
Again, it goes back to this intersection of all of our issues in the city. Only about 20% of our police officers even live in the city of Atlanta, because so many of them can't afford to live in the city.
Are you going to require new police officers to reside in the city of Atlanta?
We can't do that legally, but we can certainly make sure that we have incentives in place to make sure that they want to live in the city of Atlanta and it's appealing to them. The other issue that we are facing in the city is that we're struggling with our schools. The mayor's office doesn't have direct oversight over our school system, but our schools and our education system impacts everything. It impacts whether or not someone with a young family wants to move into the city of Atlanta. It impacts property values, and it impacts our criminal justice system. I was a judge for 6 years, and the thing that always struck me is that when men, primarily African-American men, came into court, the vast majority of them had not finished ninth grade. that means that this problem is starting long before they're 15 and 16 and can drop out of school. This is an issue that we're having in our elementary school age kids. And so it's, again, these issues all intersect, and we all have to address them simultaneously if we're going to see some real progress. And criminal justice reform is a big issue. We've got to be more proactive in how we're dealing with crime on our streets. Our police officers react to crime, but ideally we don't want crime to happen.
Sybil?
Councilwoman, have you developed a coalition of all of the folks who are running for the position of mayor? I mean, you all had, 13 people at one point running, or a large number, I just say. Have you developed a coalition of all those that were your former opponents?
One of my opponents, who is also a member of City Council, has already endorsed me, my opponent, Kwanzaa Hall. And our City Council president has chosen to go with the Republican, Mary Norwood. So, at the end of the day, Sybil, endorsements are extremely important. Mm-hmm. But the vote of Ambassador Andrew Young, who's also endorsing me, counts as the same vote as the sanitation worker in the city.
There you go.
Talking to the masses.
Getting people out to vote is critical. The last couple of elections, you did not have high turnout. What is your grassroots game to get folks to get off their butts and not sit at home and watch other folks decide? Because what we're seeing is in the areas of Buckhead and others where you have largely white voters, Mary Norwood is getting tremendous support there. They're expected to turn out in larger numbers. In fact, in the runoff, 3 of the top 4 candidates in the runoff were white candidates. What is your grassroots campaign plan?
Well, just as you all are talking about it nationally and the sense of urgency, that's what we're trying to get out in Atlanta, letting people know why it matters. I mean, in my lifetime, Maynard Jackson was the first mayor that I remember. So I do think that there's a sense of complacency as to what it means to have a mayor who truly understands all of our communities and working hard on behalf of all of our communities. So we're doing it the old-fashioned way, what I call the Maynard Jackson way. You're knocking on doors, you're calling people, but we're also pushing it out via social media and just making sure that people are talking about it and keeping it top of mind, because it matters to all of us.
All right, then.
Well, they took us off the air in Atlanta this morning.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I mean, and you know how I feel about getting the vote out, and I hope.
But here's the thing: we have people all over the country who are listening to this morning. If you know people in Atlanta, get them out to vote. That's a really important thing to do.
That's what we would do.
All right.
And thank you all for caring.
Yes.
Councilwoman Keisha Lance Bottoms, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
27
weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh, my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no.
That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong. He
Unfiltered.
wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.